I started making clothes as an early teenager, just lying on my bedroom floor on top of rolls of fabric, tracing around my body in order to make a pattern. And then over time, those skills became a little more refined. When I first started at Ruby, really a lot of what we were trying to do is just keep the doors open. But the longer that I worked in the industry, the more that I realized that the volume that we were consuming as a nation or as a global population was increasing.
Back when I was a child, back in the 70s and 80s, all the clothes that were available to be bought in New Zealand were made in New Zealand by New Zealand-owned businesses. People bought clothes to last. The whole circularity thing was much stronger. I've had the Kate Sylvester clothing label for 30 years. And back when we started in the 90s, we just scraped in. At that time, we could still buy New Zealand grown merino wool knitted in New Zealand that we could then make up into clothes and sell. That really was whittled away over time. Tariffs got removed and overseas global brands started to come in. Sustainability, there was no concept of it.
Kate and I got talking because we simultaneously were realising that there were really reasonable questions that were being asked about our production processes, our ability to actually understand them as individual businesses was really difficult. We realised, well, actually, we're only two businesses. What if we got everyone involved? That was the genesis, that was the beginning of Mindful Fashion.
So I started making clothes as a child for my Daisy doll, and I always wanted to be in the fashion industry. Being from New Zealand, it's very small here. We would go down the road to our local factories. We knew all the makers, and it was on a trip to China actually, and the volumes of T-shirts that were getting made in the factory that we visited was just something I couldn't even fathom. The amount of waste that was coming out of that factory out the back, which we were looking at, and the air was brown, the land was brown, the buildings were brown. It was just actually very overwhelming. I felt like I was contributing to this terrible problem, and that wasn't the beautiful craft and skill of clothing that I'd grown up with. So I very quickly decided that I wanted to either leave or try and make some change happen. When we started Mindful Fashion, there was nothing else available for the industry in New Zealand. So we started off by developing a code of conduct, which really was a set of responsible business practices, and all of our members, when they become members, adopt that charter. And then what we started to do was have workshops with our members about how to actually work with a code of conduct. Whakatupu Aotearoa Foundation got behind us at a really crucial time. What we knew from the early days was that New Zealand businesses predominantly are small to medium businesses, and they don't have a lot of capacity, and what I mean by that is time, people, resource, money, to go and learn how to, for example, measure their carbon footprint and then develop reduction strategies. That's a very niche field. So with Whakatupu's support, we were able to develop the Climate Action Program, and we took a cohort of businesses through the process of measuring their carbon footprints and then developing reduction strategies. And that was a real turning point for us, because we were able to see how we could really start to have impact within businesses on the ground. Over the last 20 years, the volume of clothing that we've been producing globally has doubled. We're wearing them half as long, and they're rapidly making their way to landfill. We know that something like 30% of the garments that are made every year actually don't get sold and are incinerated or landfill before they even reach a consumer. So it's a very wasteful system, and the planet simply can't support it anymore. It needs to change.
What is incredibly important for small businesses like ourselves is to make beautiful clothes that will last a lifetime, that people will pass on, hand on, that will live many, many lives. That's really what drives us as a business.
To me, clothing has real value because at a very personal level, it influences the way that you experience your day. It's a way of us being able to project our identity, to feel like you belong. I feel really lucky to be part of an industry like that. Through Mindful Fashion, the vision is that we can do things differently because we have to.